The auction hall, the hall was loud. Voices clashed, rough and greedy like a storm of hunger. Bright lights burned over a wide stage made of black metal. Strange creatures filled the seats, their eyes glowing in the shadows. They were not there for fun. They were there to buy lives. On the stage, two small figures stood together. They were sisters. Their skin was pale blue, with faint glowing lines across their arms like stars drawn on their bodies. They looked no older than children. Their hands clung to each other so tightly that their knuckles turned white. Their wide eyes searched the crowd, but all they saw were fangs, claws, and cruel laughter. The auctioneer, a tall insect-like alien with shining mandibles, raised his voice above the noise. Lot number 42, a bonded pair, healthy, rare, sisters, sold together unless broken apart by price. The crowd stirred. Everyone knew what broken apart meant. The buyers could choose to take one and sell the other somewhere else. Families often vanished that way. The smaller sister buried her face into the other's shoulder. The older one stood straight, trying to look strong, though her lip trembled. Start at 5,000 credits, the auctioneer shouted. Hands shot up. Alien voices shouted numbers. 6,000. 7. 10. The bidding climbed fast. Then, from the back of the hall, a deeper voice called out. It was calm but firm. 11. Every head turned. It was a human. He looked out of place among the monsters. His clothes were worn, patched at the elbows. A thin scar ran across his cheek. His boots were scuffed, his shoulders a little bent. He did not shine like the others, and he did not wear the fine metals of wealth. He looked tired, as if every step to this hall had cost him. Some aliens laughed. A human here? Does he think this is a market for toys? He has no credits. The human ignored the laughter. His eyes stayed on the two sisters, who stared back at him with hope that flickered like a small flame. Another voice, sharp and cruel, cut through the noise. 15. The hall fell quiet. Everyone knew that voice. From the front row stood the bidder, an alien known for cruelty. His skin was thick and red like rusted metal, with spikes along his arms. His eyes were black holes, empty of mercy. This was the one who bought families only to split them apart, selling them across the stars to owners who would never let them meet again. The crowd began to cheer. The Red Fang wants them. Poor little things won't last long. The auctioneer grinned and raised his arms. 15,000. Any higher? The human's jaw tightened. His hand rose again. 16. The cruel alien's eyes narrowed. A growl rumbled in his throat. 20. Gasps filled the room. The number was heavy enough to crush weaker bidders. Everyone turned again to the human, expecting him to fall silent. He looked pale, his hands trembling, but his eyes did not move from the sisters. 21. His voice shook, but it did not break. The crowd erupted. Some shouted in anger, others in disbelief. He cannot pay. This is madness! A fool's courage. The sisters leaned forward, watching him, their small hands pressing tighter together. The younger one whispered something in her sister's ear, and for the first time a tear slid down the older girl's cheek. The cruel alien stood tall, his shadow stretching across the hall. You dare challenge me, human? He hissed. His voice was like iron scraping stone. Do you know who I am? The human's lips pressed into a thin line. He did not answer. He simply raised his hand again. 22. The auctioneer blinked in shock. The crowd howled with laughter and rage. This was no longer a simple auction. It was a battle. The cruel alien slammed his hand on the railing in front of him, shaking the stage. You will regret this. When I buy them, I will tear them apart in front of you. The sisters gasped. The older one finally broke, pulling her sibling close and sobbing into her hair. The hall filled with cruel chuckles. But the human stood straighter, his shoulders squaring. His voice rang out louder this time. 23. The cruel alien's eyes blazed. His teeth bared. The crowd leaned forward, hungry for what would happen next. The auctioneer's mandibles clicked with excitement. His voice rose. 23,000 credits going once, going twice. The cruel alien lifted his clawed hand. 25. The hall shook with sound. The auctioneer grinned wider. The sisters whimpered. The human closed his eyes for 1 second, as if pulling strength from somewhere far inside. Then, with a deep breath, he raised his hand again. 26. The hall fell silent. Every sound seemed to vanish. Even the cruel alien froze, his mouth open in shock. The human's voice echoed, steady now, like stone that could not be moved. 26,000. The sisters stared at him, their tears shining, their fear slowly replaced by something else. Hope. And for the first time, even the cruel alien looked unsure. The auction hall was still buzzing. The human's last bid had shocked the crowd into silence and then into whispers. A weak man, dressed in worn clothes, had just dared to stand against the most feared buyer in the entire market. The cruel alien, Red Fang, glared at him with burning eyes. Everyone expected the human to collapse under that stare. But the man did not move. His hands trembled slightly, but his eyes stayed locked on the two sisters. To the crowd, he looked foolish. To the sisters, he looked like a lifeline. The human's name was not spoken in that hall. Few even knew it. He was known simply as the Drifter. He had arrived on the station months ago carrying little more than a bag of tools and a broken ship. He worked where he could, repairs, hauling, cleaning, anything that earned a few credits. But every coin he made seemed to vanish into debts. Every night he sat alone, patching his boots with thread, eating bread so hard it cracked his teeth. He had no family, no home, no future worth naming. Yet here he was in the most dangerous place in the station, spending more money than he had ever touched in his life. Why? The crowd asked themselves. Why would a man with nothing throw himself into ruin for two alien children? The answer was simple, though only he knew it. Long ago, before he drifted into this broken life, he had been a child too. He remembered the day soldiers came to his world, burning homes, tearing families apart. He remembered holding his younger sister's hand, swearing he would protect her. But he had failed. They had been separated. He never saw her again. That memory lived inside him like fire, burning even when everything else turned cold. So when he saw those two sisters standing on the stage, clinging to each other in terror, it was as if time had folded. He saw himself. He saw his sister. He felt the same helplessness in their eyes, and he knew without doubt that he could not let history repeat itself, even if it cost him everything. The auctioneer's voice dragged him back to the present. 26,000 credits, highest bid by the human. Do we have more? The cruel alien's growl filled the room. 30, gasps rang out. The number was crushing. It was the kind of bid meant to end a fight instantly. The human's stomach sank. He had been ready to spend everything, sell his ship, his tools, even his own labor for years. But 30,000 was far beyond him. His hand twitched, but it did not rise. The crowd laughed. He's finished. Knew it wouldn't last long. Now the Red Fang wins again. The sister's eyes widened in fear. The older one pulled her sister close, whispering promises she was too young to keep. The human's chest tightened. He could feel the weight of failure pressing down, the same weight he had carried since his childhood. Not again. Not this time. He stepped forward, his boots echoing on the metal floor. His voice, though rough, cut through the jeers. I don't have 30,000 credits, but I will pay with work, with years of labor, with everything I own. The hall went silent again. The auctioneer tilted his head, mandibles clicking. That is not currency, he said. The human clenched his fists. Then take my ship. Take my contract. Take my freedom. But give me the sisters. Murmurs spread through the hall. No one had ever dared offer themselves in a deal. The cruel alien snarled, slamming his claw against the railing. This is no auction, human. This is war, and you cannot win. The human's heart pounded. Sweat dripped down his neck. He was weak, hungry, and close to breaking. Yet when he looked at the sisters, his fear shifted into something else. Something sharper, strength. He raised his hand again, his voice steady this time. 31. The crowd erupted in shock. Impossible. He has nothing left to give. This man is insane. But the sisters' tears stopped. They stared at him, hope flickering back into their eyes. The cruel alien's rage shook the walls. His claws tore into the railing, sparks flying. Do you think you can defy me with tricks and words? When I win, I will take them, and I will take you too. The human did not answer. He simply kept his hand raised. His eyes, hollow with exhaustion, burned with a fire the alien could not crush. Inside, the struggle was tearing him apart. His chest ached, his body screamed at him to stop, to let go, to save himself. But his mind would not yield. He could still hear his sister's voice from long ago, the last time they held hands. He had promised her he would protect her, and he had broken that promise. He would not break it again, even if it meant his ruin. The auctioneer raised his arms. 31,000 credits. The human bids his very life. Any higher? The cruel alien hesitated. For the first time, he saw that this was no ordinary fight. This was a man who had already lost everything once, and such men were dangerous. The hall held its breath, and the human stood trembling, broken but unyielding. The cruel alien's threat. The air inside the auction hall grew heavy. Every creature in the room leaned forward, waiting. The human had spoken his last desperate bid, his voice firm, his hand still raised. He looked weak, tired, and poor, but he did not lower his eyes. Across from him, the cruel alien known as Red Fang bared his teeth. His body shook with rage, spikes glinting under the lights. No one had ever dared to challenge him in this market. He was feared, obeyed, and always the winner. Yet this human, a ragged drifter, stood against him. The silence stretched thick as chains. Then Red Fang laughed. It was a deep, rattling laugh that rolled through the hall like thunder. The sound made the sisters flinch and hide their faces against each other. The human did not move, but his knuckles turned white as he clenched his fists. Red Fang rose slowly from his seat, towering over the crowd. His shadow spread across the floor like a stain. "You," he growled, pointing a claw at the human, "do not understand what you are doing." The human said nothing. His lips pressed tight, his gaze steady. Red Fang's voice shook the walls. "These two children will not stay together. That is my law. I will buy them, split them, and send them to the far corners of the galaxy. They will never see each other again. And you—" He leaned forward, his black eyes like holes. "I will make you watch," the crowd gasped. Some grinned cruelly, others muttered in fear. Everyone knew Red Fang's reputation. He did not make empty threats. The sisters whimpered, their small bodies trembling. The older one whispered promises to the younger. "Don't cry. I will protect you. Don't cry." But her own tears betrayed her words. The human's chest tightened. He remembered his own sister's voice, her small hand slipping away long ago. The memory burned like fire. His jaw hardened. Still, Red Fang was not done. He raised his voice, louder, crueler. "Human, do you know what I do with those who defy me? I grind their names into dust. I scatter their bones in the markets. When people speak of them, it is only with laughter. That is your future." The human's heart pounded in his chest. His legs felt heavy, but his spirit refused to bow. Slowly he stepped forward, his boots echoing on the metal floor. His voice, though rough, cut through the alien's roar. "You may scatter my bones. You may grind my name, but you will not take them." The hall fell silent again. The crowd's laughter died. Even the auctioneer froze, his mandibles twitching nervously. Red Fang snarled, his claws digging into the railing until sparks flew. He was not used to defiance. He was not used to anyone standing firm when he threatened them. His body shook with fury. "You dare," he hissed. "You, fragile, starving creature, you dare speak to me as if you have power?" The human swallowed hard. His throat was dry, his body weak, but his voice did not tremble. "I dare because they are children, and no one, man or monster, has the right to tear them apart." A stunned murmur spread through the crowd. Some scoffed, others frowned in thought. No one had ever spoken such words in this hall. The sisters looked up at him with wide eyes. For the first time, hope shone brighter than fear. Red Fang's rage boiled over. He slammed his fist into the floor, cracking the metal beneath him. Sparks flew, the lights above flickered. His roar shook the entire hall. "You think courage can save them? You think words can win against claws? When I am done with you, no one will remember your face." The human's breath came heavy, but he did not look away. "Maybe no one will remember, but they will." He pointed at the sisters. "And that is enough," the younger sister gasped, her small fingers clutching her sibling's arm. The older one's tears streamed silently, but her lips curved into the smallest, trembling smile. The auctioneer, sensing the storm, raised his arms. 31,000 credits, highest bid by the human. Will the great Red Fang match or step aside? The words were dangerous. No one spoke to Red Fang like that. Yet even the auctioneer knew the rules. Once challenged, a bid must be answered. All eyes turned to the cruel alien. His jaw worked, his breath hissed, his claws tapped the railing like blades on stone. For the first time in years, hesitation touched him. Because he understood something now. This human was not bidding with money. He was bidding with his soul, and no number could break that. But Red Fang was not finished. His voice, low and deadly, cut through the silence. "Human," he whispered, "even if you win, I will not forget. You cannot guard them forever. One day when you are weak and old, I will take them. And when I do, they will beg for you to save them, but you will not be there." The human's breath hitched. His body trembled. For a moment, the weight of those words pressed down like chains, but then he lifted his head, eyes blazing. "Then I will give every breath I have until that day. And if I fall before it comes, at least they will have known freedom. At least they will have known love." The hall erupted, not in laughter this time, but in shock. Some aliens jeered, but others stayed quiet, even respectful. Something had shifted. The sisters clung to each other, their eyes locked on the human. For the first time since they were dragged onto the stage, they felt a spark of safety. Red Fang roared once more, his fury shaking the walls. But beneath the rage, a flicker of unease burned. This was not the battle he had expected, and for the first time, the human's trembling figure did not look small. It looked unbreakable. The crowd turns. The hall was no longer the same. What began as laughter and cruelty had shifted into something heavier, stranger. The human's voice had cut through the noise like a blade. His words, simple, rough but true, still echoed in the minds of those who heard them. Red Fang stood at the front, trembling with rage, his claws leaving deep scars in the railing. Yet when he roared, the crowd did not roar with him. When he threatened, the crowd did not cheer. They only watched. The sisters were still on the stage, their thin arms wrapped around each other, their small bodies shaking. But their eyes were no longer filled only with terror. They stared at the human as if his will was a shield strong enough to hold back the monster before them. The silence broke when a voice from the back muttered, not loud but clear enough to spread, "He is only human, and yet he dares." Another voice followed, sharper, mocking, "Foolish courage. He will be crushed." But then came a third voice, quiet, thoughtful. "Or maybe it is not foolish. Maybe it is something we have forgotten." The whispers grew. The audience, once united in cruel amusement, began to split. Some jeered, some murmured respect. Some shook their heads while others leaned forward, curious to see where this madness would lead. The auctioneer sensed the shift. His insectoid eyes darted nervously across the room. This was dangerous. An auction was meant to be quick, simple, clean. But now this was no longer a trade, it was a test. He clicked his mandibles together, raising his voice. 31,000. The human stands firm. Will the great Red Fang answer or yield? The word yield made the cruel alien's eyes blaze. No one had spoken it near him in years. Yielding was not in his nature nor in his name. He stood taller, his spine sharp as knives. His gaze swept the crowd, searching for support. "You know me," he roared. "You know my law. Weakness must be punished. Families must be broken. That is how order is kept." Some in the crowd shouted in agreement. "Yes, he is right. Break them apart." But others were less sure. They shifted uncomfortably, their eyes darting between the human and the sisters. The human had planted doubt like a seed, and it was growing. The human stepped forward again. His boots rang against the metal floor. His voice was not loud, but it carried. "You call it order," he said, eyes fixed on Red Fang. "But it is only cruelty. You do not care for law. You care for power. You take children, tear them apart, and call it strength. But strength is not in breaking. Strength is in protecting." The crowd stirred. Some scoffed. Some nodded. Red Fang snarled, his teeth flashing. "You dare speak of strength, human? You who trembles even now?" The human's lips curved into the smallest bitter smile. "Yes, I tremble. I am weak, I am hungry. I am nothing. But still I stand against you. And if a nothing like me can stand against your cruelty, then maybe your strength is nothing at all." Gasps echoed. Even the auctioneer froze. The sister's eyes widened. The younger one whispered, "He is not afraid." The older one shook her head, her voice trembling but steady. "No, he is afraid. But he stands anyway." The hall filled with whispers now, faster, louder. "He has nothing, yet he defies him. Is that not madness? Or is that the very meaning of courage?" Red Fang roared, trying to drown the voices. "Silence! All of you!" His claws scraped the railing, sparks flying. But the crowd no longer obeyed him as they once did. In the back corner, a reptilian merchant hissed to his neighbor, "Tell me, when was the last time you saw someone bid not for profit but for love?" The neighbor, a tall, feathered trader, lowered his gaze. "Never. Not in this place." Even those who despised humans could not deny the sight before them. A frail man, empty of wealth, standing tall with nothing but will. It was strange. It was foolish. But it was stirring. The auctioneer clicked again, trying to seize control. 31,000 credits! Going once, going twice. But Red Fang slammed his fist down. No, I will not be mocked. His voice thundered across the hall. 35. The crowd gasped again. The number was enormous. No worker, no drifter, no starving human could match it. Surely this was the end? All eyes turned back to the human. His shoulders sagged. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. Sweat glistened on his forehead. For a moment it seemed he would collapse, but then slowly his hand rose again. His voice cracked, but it did not break. 36. The whispers became a storm. Impossible. He cannot pay. Does he mean to sell his very soul? Red Fang's fury burned hotter than fire. He slammed the railing so hard the metal split, sparks showering down. You will regret this. You will regret every breath you take, human. Do you hear me? When this is done, I will make you wish you had never been born. The human's hand trembled, but it stayed raised. His voice was quiet, but in that silence it carried more than thunder. Perhaps. But today they will stay together. That is enough. The crowd fell silent again. Many stared at him in awe, others in disbelief. But no one laughed anymore. The tide was turning. The final bid, the hall trembled with noise. The human's voice, thin but steady, still echoed, 36. The number seemed impossible. It was higher than anyone thought he could pay. It was higher than anyone thought he would dare. For a moment the hall froze. Then the whispers came, fast and sharp. He cannot match it. He is bluffing. No one risks their life for children not their own. The auctioneer's mandibles clicked nervously. His many eyes darted between the two bidders. On one side, Red Fang, towering, cruel, overflowing with power. On the other, a human, shaking, pale, but standing firm. The sisters clung to each other on the stage. Their small hearts beat like drums. They could not understand the numbers, but they understood the fight. Every time the human raised his hand, their hope rose with it. Every time Red Fang roared, their fear returned. Red Fang leaned forward, his voice low but sharp like a blade pressed against skin. You cannot pay. 36,000 credits? You have no ship, no land, no wealth, nothing but scraps. If you win, you will be crushed under debts before you take a single step outside this hall. The human's throat was dry, his body trembling from exhaustion. He had nothing left. No ship, no tools, no future. He had sold it all just to reach this point, but he did not lower his hand. His eyes stayed locked on the sisters. Red Fang snarled. His voice rose again. 38, the crowd gasped. The number thundered across the hall, breaking what little silence remained. It was more than enough to destroy any challenger. The auctioneer's mandibles clattered with excitement. 38,000. Bid by the great Red Fang. The crowd buzzed. Some cheered for the alien, eager for his victory. Others leaned forward, curious if the human would rise again. The man's chest tightened. His stomach twisted. His hand shook violently now. Could he? Could he go higher? Inside him, a battle raged. His mind screamed, stop! You cannot win. You have nothing left. But his heart whispered, do not fail them. Not again. He remembered his own sister the last time he saw her. Her hand slipping away, her face vanishing in the crowd. His promise breaking, his hand lifted, weak but certain. His voice cracked, but it carried across the hall. 39. The silence that followed was different this time. It was not shock, not laughter. It was awe. He rises again. He has nothing, but still he rises. Is this man mad, or is he stronger than all of us? The sisters' tears turned to smiles, small and trembling, but real. For the first time, they believed. Red Fang roared, his voice shaking the hall like thunder. Sparks flew as his claws tore into the railing. His body shook with rage. 45! He bellowed. The number slammed down like a hammer. Gasps echoed. Even the auctioneer flinched at the sheer size of it. 45,000. By Red Fang. The crowd roared again, half in awe, half in fear. Surely this was the end. No man, no human could go beyond that. The human swayed on his feet. His vision blurred. His body screamed in pain. His pockets were empty. His debts already deeper than he could survive. He closed his eyes. He could hear the sisters crying softly. He could hear his sister's voice from long ago. Don't let go. His lips parted. His voice was a whisper at first, but it grew louder. 46! The hall erupted. The auctioneer froze in place, his mandibles hanging open. His voice cracked as he repeated, 46,000. The human, 46? The crowd shouted in disbelief. He cannot pay it. He will die in debt. But he does not stop. Red Fang's body shook with rage. His claws scraped sparks from the floor. He leaned forward, his voice deadly. You cannot do this. Even if you win, you will be broken. You will starve. And he pointed at the sisters. They will suffer with you. The human's eyes burned. His voice was hoarse, almost gone. Better to starve together in freedom than to live apart in chains. The sisters began to cry again, but now their tears were different. They were not tears of terror. They were tears of hope. The hall was no longer with Red Fang. The whispers, the murmurs, even the silence, all of it leaned toward the human now. For the first time, the cruel alien felt something he did not recognize. Doubt. The auctioneer raised his arms. His voice trembled. 46,000 credits. Going once. The hall was so quiet that every breath could be heard. Going twice. Red Fang's claws dug into the floor. His teeth bared. His rage boiled like fire. But his voice did not rise. His pride would not let him bid higher, and yet his fear would not let him show weakness. He froze, caught between fury and shame. The auctioneer's mandibles clicked together one last time. Sold to the human. The hall exploded with sound. Some screamed in disbelief. Others shouted with respect. Some cheered, some cursed. But all of them turned to look at the human, this weak, trembling drifter who had done the impossible. The sisters fell to their knees on the stage, crying with joy. They held each other tighter, their small voices whispering his name, though they did not know it. To them, he was not a stranger anymore. He was their savior. And Red Fang, the monster who had ruled this hall for years, stood in silence. His black eyes burned with hatred, his teeth grinding until sparks flew. But no matter his fury, the truth could not be undone. The human had won. The truth revealed, the sound of the auctioneer's final word, sold, still echoed through the vast hall. The crowd erupted, voices clashing in disbelief, anger, even awe. A human had won. A human had outbid Red Fang. The sisters collapsed into each other's arms, sobbing with relief. Their small shoulders shook, but their cries were no longer of fear. They were tears of joy. For the first time since they had been dragged into the auction, they felt safe. The human stood still at the back of the hall. His chest heaved with every breath. Sweat rolled down his face. His legs trembled beneath him. He looked like a man about to fall. But he did not. He remained upright, his eyes fixed on the sisters. To him, nothing else existed in that moment. Not the jeers, not the stares, not the monster glaring at him from the front row. Only the two fragile lives he had fought for. But Red Fang was not silent. He rose from his seat, towering above everyone, his massive frame casting a shadow across the stage. His black eyes blazed with fire. His spines rattled like blades ready to strike. This is a trick, he growled, his voice shaking the metal walls. This man cannot pay. He lies, he cheats. He is dust pretending to be gold, the crowd murmured. Some nodded. Others shook their heads. The auctioneer shifted uneasily, his mandibles clattering. He needed proof. Human, the insectoid called out. You have made the highest bid. 46,000 credits. Show your payment. All eyes turned. The human closed his eyes for a moment as if gathering the last of his strength. Then he stepped forward. Each step echoed loudly, like a drumbeat in the silent hall. His boots scraped against the floor, his shoulders slumped, but his face remained steady. From his belt, he pulled a small metal case. It was old, scratched, dented from years of use. He set it on the auctioneer's stand and opened it. Inside were data chips, small, glowing, each one stamped with a mark of value. The auctioneer leaned close, scanning them with his device. His mandibles clicked in surprise. Ships, tools, even a contract. The human spoke, his voice rough but clear. Everything I owned, my vessel, my work equipment, my savings, my labor signed away for 10 years. It is all here. Every breath of my future traded for theirs. The hall gasped. He had given up everything. He had nothing left but his body and the 2 children he had fought for. The sisters stared at him with wide eyes. They did not understand all the words, but they understood the meaning. He had sacrificed all that he was just to keep them together. Red Fang's roar broke the silence. It was not laughter this time, but pure fury. You are a fool, he thundered. You have chained yourself. You have sold your life. You cannot protect them. You cannot even protect yourself. The human turned, meeting his gaze. His eyes were weary, hollow, but inside them burned a quiet flame. Maybe I cannot protect myself, but I can give them a chance. That is more than you have ever given anyone. The words cut deep. Even the crowd felt their sting. Some aliens muttered. He gave up everything for them. No wealth, no ship, no future. Only them. Strange, yet noble. Others scoffed, but not as loudly as before. The hall no longer belonged to Red Fang's voice alone. The auctioneer cleared his throat, his mandibles twitching. The payment is accepted. The contract is sealed. The sisters belong to the human. Gasps rippled across the hall. For the first time in years, Red Fang had lost. The cruel alien leaned forward, his teeth bared. His voice was low now, but every syllable dripped with venom. You think you have won, human? You think this moment will last? No, I will wait. I will watch. When you stumble, when you starve, when your debts crush you, I will take them. And when I do, you will beg me to end your misery. The human's body shook, but his voice did not falter. Perhaps. But until that day, they will be free. Until that day, they will be together. And that is worth every chain on my own neck. The crowd stirred. His words were simple, but they cut deeper than any blade. The sisters could no longer stay still. They broke free from the stage guard's grip and rushed toward him. Their small feet echoed across the floor. They threw their arms around his legs, holding him as if he were their anchor in a storm. The human staggered, almost falling, but he caught himself. His hand rested gently on their small heads. His eyes closed, and for a moment the weight of years lifted. He had lost everything but gained something greater. The hall watched in silence. Even the cruelest among them could not deny the power of what they saw. Red Fang turned sharply, his spines rattling with fury. He stormed out of the hall, his threats echoing behind him. This is not over, human. You will pay. You will all pay. The crowd parted for him, silent as he passed. No one dared to stand in his way. But once he was gone, their eyes returned to the human, the man who had nothing and yet had won. Some looked at him with pity, others with admiration, a few perhaps with respect. The auctioneer closed the case of payments and handed him the release papers. The children are yours, he said, his voice quieter than before. But so too are your debts, the human nodded. His voice was barely above a whisper. I know. And with the sisters at his side, he turned and walked out of the hall. The human legacy, the marketplace was quieter now. The roar of bidding, the clash of voices, the cruel laughter, all of it had faded into memory. The human walked slowly through the long metal corridors of the station, the sisters clinging tightly to his sides. His steps were heavy. His body ached. Every breath burned in his chest. He had given away everything he owned, his ship, his tools, his future. The weight of debt pressed against him like a chain. He had no clear path forward, no certain tomorrow. But when he looked down at the sisters, holding his hand so tightly as if letting go would mean the end of the world, he felt lighter. Their wide eyes no longer carried only fear. Now they carried trust, hope, and for the first time in years, so did he. Word spread quickly across the station. A human, poor, weak, nameless, had outbid Red Fang, the cruelest buyer in the markets. At first the story was told with laughter, mocking the human's foolishness, but as it spread, the laughter softened into thought. He gave up his ship. He sold his future. He saved them anyway. Some scoffed, saying he was a fool. But others whispered that perhaps courage did not always wear armor or wealth. Perhaps it sometimes looked like a trembling man who stood his ground. The sisters never let go of him that night. They followed him back to the small room he rented, a bare space with one broken lamp, a thin bed, and nothing else. To anyone else it was an empty box, but to the sisters it was freedom. They could sit together. They could sleep side by side. They could wake and see each other's faces. They curled up on the bed, exhausted from fear and tears. Within moments they fell asleep, their small hands still holding his. The human sat awake beside them. He watched their chests rise and fall, listened to their quiet breaths. His body begged for rest, but his mind wandered. He thought of his own sister, long lost to him. He wondered if somewhere in some distant corner of the galaxy she was alive. He wondered if she ever forgave him for failing her. He whispered softly into the dark, I couldn't save you. But I saved them. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to close his eyes without the weight of guilt crushing him. But Red Fang's shadow did not vanish. Word of his defeat spread too, and it carried with it his fury. In the dark corners of the station, his followers whispered promises of revenge. They swore the human's victory would not last, that one day the monster would return to claim what he believed was his. The human knew this. He felt it in every step he took, in every glance he caught from strangers in the halls. Danger still stalked them. The future was uncertain, maybe even doomed. Yet when he looked at the sisters, he did not regret a single choice. The younger sister, still shy, began to hum as they walked. It was a soft sound like starlight turned into music. The older one, braver now, spoke more often. She told him small stories of their home world, the colors of the sky, the sound of rivers. They spoke of things they had lost, but when they spoke together, it did not sound only like loss. It sounded like memory kept alive. The human listened quietly. He did not interrupt. He only nodded, his tired face softening into a rare smile. In those voices, he heard something he thought he had lost forever. Family. Days passed. Work was hard. The debts were heavy. There were nights when hunger gnawed at them all. But no matter how hard the struggle, the sisters were together. And that, the human believed, was worth more than any coin, any ship, any future. Some began to notice. Merchants who once laughed now offered him food at lower prices. Traders who once sneered gave him odd jobs. A few even nodded respectfully when he passed. They whispered to each other, not mockery this time, but something closer to wonder. He stood against Red Fang. He won. He is only human, but maybe that is enough. One evening, as the sisters slept beside him, the human sat alone by the broken lamp. His hands were rough, his body worn, but his heart, though heavy, was steady. He thought of legacy, not the kind written in books or carved in stone. His name would not be sung in the halls of kings. His story might never spread beyond the market walls. But two children, two sisters, would grow old knowing they had once been saved by a man who had nothing, yet gave everything. They would carry that memory in their hearts. They would tell it in their voices, and perhaps in some quiet way that would be enough. The human lay down at last, his eyes closing as sleep pulled him under. The sisters stirred in their dreams, pressing closer to him. The narrator's voice carried softly as if speaking to the stars themselves. He was weak. He was poor. He was nothing to the world. But to them he was everything. He was only human, and that was enough.